During the Western Han Dynasty, it was not without imagination that Wang Mang and Liu Xiu came to seek refuge, following the principles of Western Han, crossing over, no system, farming, divine medicine, commerce, Rome, rest, Xiongnu, cavalry, invincibility, Wang Mang, Liu Xiu, Yin Lihua, Jin Wu, the end of the world, famine, industrialization, strategy, court, green forest, red eyebrows, thieves, and bandits. What can Wang Mang's new dynasty do after crossing to the end of the Western Han Dynasty? Where do you choose to pursue development? What is the development? Who are friends? Who is the enemy again? Watch the historical records of the Northern Han Dynasty and savor the different historical fireworks. Here, there are passionate writers, strategic calculations, and post-apocalyptic hardships. From the perspective of ordinary people, we can experience the changes of the times, and let different eras and people take us back to the prosperous era of the Han Dynasty. Is it history choosing characters or characters creating history? Watch the wind and cloud records of the Northern Han Dynasty and pursue the characters you like. Chapter 1. Desert Heroes Association. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 2. Deviated route. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 3. Getting Lost by the River. You are listening at novelfull.audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text. Chapter 4. Encountering an Ancient Man. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What's wrong with you, Gao? Gao's wife asked in confusion. My 300 square meter floor. Hearing this, several people couldn't help but laugh bitterly. Lao Gao bought a piece of homestead near his workplace and built a 3-story small building. Everyone knows that it was because of this incident, and everyone can only repay it with a bitter smile. Time and space are different now, and Chen Fei is still thinking about the house. He is even a little happy. Finally, there's no need to repay the loan. Everyone responded to his sighs with laughter. After indulging in hardship, 2 questions were presented to everyone. After confirmation, the area was undoubtedly the same as the original coal city. Judging from the vegetation, it was obvious that it was much better than when they were in it. Chen Fei also confirmed this. It is easy for everyone to speculate that they have returned to the past rather than traveled to the future. What is now in front of them is to confirm when the present is. If it is a prosperous era, everything will pass, but if it is a chaotic era where human life is not as good as dogs, it is necessary to plan carefully. Everyone took a few bites of lunch with some displeasure, and immediately received a few plastic bags distributed by the boss to everyone. All taken, there aren't many plastic bags, it's hard to find them if you lose them. Uncle Gao, what are you doing? Are you putting it on your feet? Collect all the feces in the bag these days, remember it. Ouch, but Bai Shan made a dry and nauseous sound. Why? If we go back in time, each of you is a golden doll, especially you, Bai Shan. What? Stool contains many seeds of crops, such as watermelons and tomatoes, which cannot be digested by the human digestive system. They can be collected and cultivated to produce crops. Everyone suddenly realized, and the feeling of resistance that had just arisen disappeared without a trace. They even nodded secretly for Lao Gao's words. He was really professional. A few people bumped into each other and decided to temporarily split the army into 2 routes. The old man's wife and 3 children stood guard in the car, while the old man and the 3 of them crossed the river to continue their exploration. Several men are preparing according to their respective tasks, preparing to leave tomorrow morning after 10 o'clock. Today, they need to continue to recover their strength and repeatedly remind the left-behind personnel to pay attention to safety. The next morning, the 3 of them tied up ropes and headed down the river. They were not completely dry ducks and knew how to water, but even so, they firmly connected themselves to the inflatable mattress. Through yesterday's preparation, each person had an inflatable neck cover made of plastic, which could ensure that their heads would always float on the water. According to the length of the rope used by Chen Fei when crossing the river yesterday, fix one end of the rope to a small tree on the bank, and 3 people swim together towards the opposite bank. The autumn water is not yet cold, so the 3 of them swam across the river without any danger. They put on their clothes, tried to straighten the rope, fixed the inflatable mattress on the shore, and each person also carried a self-defense weapon. Old Gao held a folding engineer shovel in his hand, with sharp blades reflecting the metallic luster. Chen Fei held a wrench and steel pipe found in the toolbox, while Old Bai held a serious weapon, a watermelon knife. The 3 of them are all tactical novices, so they do not follow any particular order. They step on the low grass while using their tools to push open the branches that occasionally come into view. Quickly, the 3 of them arrived at the boundary that Chen Fei had explored yesterday. After a brief repair, they decided to take action together and continue exploring eastward. From the carefully searched situation just now, it is obvious that this generation is not without a trace. Just now, Old Bai discovered half of a broken pottery jar, which was obviously thrown away by someone who accidentally broke the jar while fetching water by the river. After exploring for about half an hour, a few people saw a road at the end of the vegetation by the river. It was not wide, but obviously a dirt road that was frequently walked by people. The rut marks on the road showed that it was a type of wooden-wheeled vehicle. After exploring for more than a kilometer along the way, no other valuable clues were found, and a few people had to return. After all, leaving women and children on the other side of the river, they always felt uneasy, especially after discovering that there were no people here. This concern became even stronger. But at this moment, Chen Fei made a gesture of silence and called for the 2 to hide in the grass on this side of the river. Because this action was covert, all 3 of them changed into camouflage-style work clothes, making hiding in the grass even more covert. Amidst the sound of livestock barking in his ears, Lao Gao quickly distinguished the sounds of cows, sheep, and pigs, and could also easily distinguish between human voices and the creaking sound of wooden axles grinding dry. Quickly, the 3 of them hiding in the grass saw 2 young men dressed in peculiar attire, driving a group of pigs and 2 cows. They approached and said that their peculiar attire was because they were both wearing short robes made of fabric that could not be seen, with hemp shoes on their feet. They were around 20 years old, and their movements were very casual without any warning. Immediately after them, an ox cart appeared, with 2 oxen pulling a cart with huge wooden wheels. On it sat several elderly people and children, as well as some seemingly household items. After the ox cart, followed by a group of men and women dressed similarly to the 2 young men, about 40 or 50 people, followed by a group of pig-like people. This time, the number of pig-like people was slightly more, about 100, followed by 3 slightly older people, about 40 years old. Upon seeing this situation, the 3 of them roughly summed it up, and then the oldest tall man took the lead. The tall man dodged through the grass where he was hiding and set off, startling the man who was driving the sheep. The subsequent exclamation immediately alarmed the men and women in front, and a group of people gathered around. Lao Gao did not use an engineering shovel, but instead raised his hands high, with a smile on his face that he thought was very kind. The shepherd Michigan heir was truly startled as he watched a colorful humanoid monster emerge from the grass. At first, he thought it was a wild beast, but after realizing that it was also a human, he breathed a sigh of relief. However, since the exclamation of surprise had spread, it naturally attracted many people, and Lao Gao was also quite nervous. However, seeing that whether it was the sheep herding or the surrounding people, apart from a few others holding wooden sticks in their hands, there were no weapons, this made him slightly relieved. Just as he was about to speak, he saw the crowd separate, and an old man with white beard and linen clothes walked out of the crowd. Judging from his clothes, it was obvious that he was one of the elderly people who had just been on the ox cart. "Why is this brave man blocking the way?" Listening to the strong Shaanxi accent, Lao Gao felt a moment of confusion and quickly answered. Chapter 5. First Contact. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Elderly people, I don't know where you're going. Oh, keep heading south, probably all the way to Xiongnu. Ms. Han was an old man from the Mi family. Seeing this colorful person, although he had a strange accent, his words also had a Shaanxi accent, and he just replied. Excuse me, what year is this year and which emperor is sitting in court? This is the second year of the Tianfeng era, so naturally it is our new dynasty where the emperor sits in court. Fortunately, history is not as advanced as Xiaobai's. After a moment of contemplation, it immediately became clear that they did not travel to parallel time and space, but unexpectedly traveled to the era of Wang Mang. Tianfeng is the second reign title of Wang Mang, which lasted for about 5 or 6 years. This year is the second year of Tianfeng, and it seems that Wang Mang and his new dynasty are still flourishing, not to the level of public resentment during the reign of Emperor Di. Why are you heading south, old man? Alas, brave warrior, who would be willing to leave their hometown? I, the Mi tribe, have been in the fertile fields for 3 generations. If it weren't for the officials and civilians fleeing back, why would we have to give up our family business? Lao Gao immediately remembered the late period of Wang Mang, when the people of the north saw rare opportunities and new immigrants fled to Guangzhou. This Mi family is probably because everyone else has run away, looking at their own loneliness and unable to survive alone in the days to come. That's why they are supporting the elderly and children all the way to the south. By the way, Woi, isn't this the old city of Coal City? Old man, how far is this Woi County seat from here? Go 130 miles north along the river, the old man continued. Thank you very much, old man, for bothering you. Yes, I dare ask where the hero came from. I am from Heshi, crossing the river from Heshi. Lao Gao immediately made up his plan to fabricate an identity from Heshi. But crossing the desert. Unexpectedly, this old man Mi had extraordinary knowledge and even knew about the desert. Indeed, it's crossing the desert, Lao Gao replied. Unexpectedly, the old man took a step back and then bowed, which startled Lao Gao. Old man, why is this? My Mi family was once rescued by people from Heshi, so all the people from Heshi are benefactors of the Mi ethnic group. What is the brave man's surname? Do you have companions? I see, the elderly don't need to be like this. My surname is Gao, with 7 companions and 4 women and children in the west of the river. Since the Mi family has no ill intentions, let's answer the question honestly. The old man called out and then gave a few words of advice to a middle-aged man next to him. Old Gao saw that the Mi family had actually planned to camp on the spot. In no time, I saw the middle-aged man carrying a wooden frame, following 2 young people, and surprisingly bringing more than 10 sheepskin tubes. Isn't this just a sheepskin raft? Old Gao was overjoyed, and it seemed that he not only got in touch, but also received assistance. It seems true that the Mi family has benefited from the people of Heshi. Thinking of this, he gave a secret signal to Lao Baizong. Upon receiving the secret code, the 2 of them, Lao Bai, immediately revealed themselves from their hiding place. Seeing the 3 people in ordinary attire, it immediately caused the Mi family members to mutter again. The 6 people quickly arrived at the crossing point, thinking that there were still vehicles on the other side that could not be accommodated, let alone crossed the river. So they said to the middle-aged man, the women and children on the other side are unclear, so we need to go over and comfort the 2 of them first. That middle-aged man is indispensable. So it was decided on the spot that Chen Fei and Lao Bai would take a sheepskin raft to cross the river. Lao Gao continued to discuss other matters with the old man of the Nami family. After the 3 of them had finished their discussion, they sent a signal to the other side. The person on the other side who had been keeping an eye on the direction of the river quickly pulled the rope and pulled the sheepskin raft towards the other side of the river when they saw the signal being sent out. Does the elderly live a long life this year? It was probably the first time someone had asked this question, and after some thought, Mi Lao Er finally understood Lao Gao's question. Xiao Lao Er is 60 and 40 this year. At this age, Lao Gao felt a bit toothache. He was about to reach retirement age, and although he looked very old, he was actually not a few years older than himself. It seems that although one is an elderly member of the clan, daily labor should be indispensable. Coupled with the widespread nutritional imbalance in these years, aging is considered normal. After completing their psychological construction, the two continued to chat aimlessly. Two villagers separated by 2,000 years miraculously did not have many obstacles to dialogue. Perhaps this can also be considered the role of the local people. When it came to discussing the ancestors of the Mi family, Lao Gao finally learned that the Mi family had been living in this land known as the Fertile Land for 4 generations. Mi Lao can be considered the only surviving member of the 2nd generation, so he is the current spokesperson of the Mi family. How long does it take to get to Xiongnu in this way? Lao Gao continued to ask. I waited for the women and children to accompany me, which slowed down the journey. It will take about 40 days to arrive. Xiongnu is roughly the Shaanxi region of later generations. Lao Gao counted it from his heart and found that it was about 30 to 40 miles a day. Judging by the walking distance, it was also considered average. At this moment, Old Bai on the other side of the river made a difficult decision on how to dispose of the vehicle. The final conclusion of the discussion was to find a slightly lower place, dig a ditch and bury the vehicle first, and then see the situation later. A few people worked together, and in less than an hour, they dug out a trench in a sand pit that was enough to bury 2 cars. They took some essential items from the car, packed 7 or 8 backpacks, and fixed the car cover with a camping tent, covering it with a thin layer of fine sand. Roughly marking the direction on a sketch, a few people walked towards the river. Although the sheepskin raft was not small, it was still somewhat unsafe to ride on so many people and items at once. Therefore, it was decided that Lao Bai would first bring 3 people over, then pull over the raft, and then Chen Fei would ferry the remaining people over. While keeping an eye on the situation of crossing the river, Lao Gao continued to chat with Mi Lao. After a while, Lao Gao also roughly understood the situation of the Mi family and learned about the population and property status of this small family. The Mi family built a small farm by the river in the north of Woi County. If it weren't for the large influx of immigrants back to Guanyi, they would have lived this way for a long time. However, due to the influence of fate, they can be considered a local family. Due to the large environment, they also have to follow the flow, and it is likely that this Mi family will gradually disappear during the long journey. It may also develop and grow in a mountain valley in northern Shaanxi. However, now that he has met these people like himself, their fate will definitely change. Although his future destination has not been determined yet, Lao Gao vaguely feels that he will never follow the flow of people to any laborious county. Although Coal City may not be considered a feng shui treasure trove, if managed properly, it is definitely much better than long-distance migration. As the saying goes, people who leave their hometowns are cheap, and I am so familiar with Coal City, I cannot just leave like this. Chapter 6. Reasonable Persuasion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Since I already have a total in mind, I unconsciously led the topic up to this. After a while, the two of them had already started to call each other brothers, indicating that although Lao Gao was not good at talking, he still had the ability to communicate and exchange ideas. It's not a solution for you to migrate like this. Besides, what's the situation with Xiongnu? If you go so rashly, it's probably not the top choice. We also think the same way, but unfortunately, we are weak and cannot rely on our own family to establish ourselves here. Although the migration path is not easy, it is also impossible, said a strong man next to Malayor. Lao Gao already knew that this man named Mi 17 was Mi Lao's 3rd son, and he couldn't help but shake his head and say, although that's the case, there will inevitably be people who don't want to migrate long distances. Stay here. Of course there is. Gao Jiazwang, which is more than 40 miles away, will not leave the family anymore. Old Gao heard that there was actually a Gao family village here, not far away, and immediately interjected, "Oh, this Gao family village has a large population. There are quite a few, although the exact number is unknown. There are 500 to 600 members of the He clan. I'm afraid there are quite a few farmers like this, right? What can be left behind are all the big villages. Small villages like my Mi family, although unwilling, have no choice but to leave, otherwise it will be difficult to protect the entire clan in a chaotic situation. Have you not considered setting up a village for self-protection, or linking villages for self-protection? Is there no one left in the local government?" The people of the government were the first to leave, and their departure caused a stir in people's hearts. Some small households found it difficult to stay and quickly left. Establishing a stronghold for self-protection may not be easy. After all, people's hearts are unpredictable, and there are also many who have turned to large villages. Oh, what kind of defection method? It is said that if one has no land and no money, they can only rely on farming to make a living. I see. Upon hearing this, Lao Gao immediately understood that some small farmers who were unwilling to migrate must have broken up into small pieces and scattered into large villages. These large villages still have a certain level of self-protection strength at present. But considering that this place is highly likely to become the territory of the Xiongnu in the future, Lao Gao is not so optimistic about the future of these people. At this point in the conversation, it was evident that the people on Chen Fei's raft had also arrived. Together, they pulled the raft ashore and released the airbags. The middle-aged man who had taken out the raft earlier showed great interest in Chen Fei's nylon rope. This kind of rope, which looks like silk but doesn't absorb water, may be the only one he has seen in his life. When Chen Fei collected the rope, he left behind about 10 meters. At this time, he cut it with a small knife and handed it to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man clearly did not expect Chen Fei to give him the rope. He waved his hand repeatedly and refused, saying that he was only curious about the material of the rope. Chen Fei restrained himself from explaining the artificial silk, but reluctantly stuffed a small bundle of tied ropes into the middle-aged man's arms. A few people carrying backpacks converged towards the direction of Lao Gao. After some discussion, everyone agreed with Lao Gao's previous plan. The group immediately decided to move towards the Mi family. If we rely solely on ourselves, we will definitely not escape the fate of migration. If we want to establish ourselves in the local area, it will be difficult to do anything without a basic plan. Since the plan has been decided, then the next step is to do the work of the Mi family. Looking at the situation of the Mi family's silent journey, many people are unwilling to leave the countryside, but cannot resist the elderly, which is why they reluctantly follow the flow and embark on the path of migration. Since the Mi family has decided to camp here tonight, there is no rush to do the work. After half a day of exploration and running, a few people are tired and hungry. Seeing that the Mi family has also started cooking, Old Bai and Chen Fei, at the signal of Old Gao, also started preparing to start. As someone who has been through this time, the most effective way to bring emotions closer is nothing more than a dinner party, which highlights the importance of a wine party. Doing the work of the rice family at the wine party is the most suitable. Spread out 2 camping blankets, take out the convenient food brought and put it on display. It's nothing more than 2 or 3 barrels of canned meat, as well as some fast food such as chicken feet and peanuts. During this period, it's essential to have a few bottles of ergoto to keep warm. These were all packed together by Chen Fei in his own bag while packing up, which quickly came in handy. With his sincerity, the old man here has invited several influential members of the Mi family. Mi Lao heir is indispensable, as well as Mi Lao heir's 3 sons. The man who was carrying the raft just now is Mi Lao heir's eldest son, and a few older men, all of whom are within the invitation range. A few people arrived here and looked at the various foods placed on the blanket. Although they didn't know the taste, judging from the strong aroma of the wine, these were undoubtedly food to eat. After some persuasion, a group of people sat on the ground, with the senior wife and a few students naturally sitting together with the younger ones. The senior 3 and 4 prominent figures of the Mi family sat together. I will prepare some thin wine as a token of gratitude for the crossing of the river by the Dami family. The opening line naturally began with Lao Gao. Listening to this elegant opening line, Chen Fei couldn't help but grin. We are all Han people, so it's natural for us to help each other. Although Mi Lauer was a bit smug, he still managed to handle it very well after some pushing. After some persuasion, the few people began to get to the point. The Mi family showed great interest in their fast food, especially the strong aroma of the open canned lunch meat, which, although separated by thousands of years, still made people salivate. Lao Bai had already cut the canned lunch meat into small pieces in advance, and at that moment, he opened the fast food chicken leg in front of him and handed it to Mi Lao Er. Sure enough, these later snacks, known as junk food, although people have some reservations about them, to be honest, their taste is still very good. This can be seen from Mi Lauer's intoxicated expression. Slowly savoring the delicious food in his mouth, Mi Lao Er became even more curious about the group of people in front of him. These people, judging by their clothing and speech, were by no means ordinary people. It seemed that he had taken the right step in helping them. The things these people brought out were not ordinary at first glance. Just now, the eldest son had already shown him the rope. Even with his own experience, he had never seen the thin rope before. 3 or 5 sturdy young men kept pulling on it, which was truly surprising. And the clothes of these people, as soon as they look at the texture of the fine cloth, they already feel extraordinary. The bulging luggage is like a treasure bag, and the food they are eating at this moment is so delicious. Oh, feeling the movement on his side, Mi Lao Er turned his head to look, but his little grandson was eagerly looking at the chicken legs in his hand at some point. Chapter 7. Total on the Road of Return. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 8. Return to Mi Family Village. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. It's the end of the Han Dynasty now, and in a few years, the world will be in chaos. Wang Mang won't have many years to live. Liu Xiu will soon get up and ask me to watch. He will stay here and live a peaceful life. When Liu Xiu sits down in the world and goes to Luoyang City to live, he will become a wealthy man and live his remaining life. Before, I used to brag about being born out of time, but now it's crooked. If you don't play your leading role, it seems like you can't justify it. What kind of wealthy man? Are you willing to do that? That's right, hey, Gao. You said if we could create a separatist regime or something, it's not worth a trip. What's the separatist regime? Liu Xiu is the true son of fate. According to historical records, he has many oxen, but Wang Mang is said to have traveled through time. Didn't he be killed by others? I don't believe Wang Mang is a traveler. Old Bai, do you also believe in the son of destiny or something? The 3 of them chuckled softly. If you ask me, Lao Gao breathed a sigh of relief, the conditions in Coal City are still good. In history, after Emperor Qin Shi Huang drove away the Xiongnu, there was originally a chance to turn this place into a growth pole for the Qin state. Unfortunately, it was the director and Xiong Pifu who caused trouble. Well, what do you mean, Gao? There's dragon energy here, is there any manipulation? Yeah, you see, the agricultural conditions on both sides of the river here are very convenient, and there is no shortage of mineral resources nearby. In the later Western Xia dynasty, with just a small corner of land, it was divided for 300 to 400 years. In our hands, it would not be worse than the Li Yuanhao family. I think the only thing missing is people. From what the Nami family said, although this place has been operated by the Han Dynasty for over 100 years, even people's hearts have not yet settled down. Whenever there is a disturbance, they know to run to the central plains. No, lacking people is the biggest bottleneck, right? Where is the shortage of people? That's not to say, Ms. Han. There are still 30.4% of the people left behind. Based on this information, there are always at least 400,000 to 500,000 people in this Hetao area, and with the addition of nomadic tribes, there are still over 1 million people. The Central Plains War is about to break out. When the war breaks out, there will be countless refugees. As long as there is no shortage of food here, there will be people. Not to mention 1 million or so people, I can also bring you more. Chen Fei said leisurely on the side. Upon hearing these words, the two of them knew that Chen Fei, a businessman, had committed another flaw, but they also felt it was reasonable. Therefore, they fell into silence in the tent for a while, and soon, the sound of Lao Bai's snoring came out. After a day of tinkering, the other two were also tired, so the snoring of the three big men kept rising one after another. When the east revealed the white belly of a fish, everyone was awakened by the cries of pigs and sheep. The rice porridge prepared by the women of the rice family was ready. At the moment, Lao Bai and others were washing with hot water by the campfire. The Mi family stood not far away one by one, watching these few people brushing their teeth with toothbrushes, especially those children, who were eager to try. However, they didn't have any extra toiletries in their hands, so they had to quickly wash up and salute the elderly. Several elderly people have regained consciousness from their hangover and just listened to the alliance between the two sides again from the young population. After returning to the Mi family village today, they all seemed a bit listless, but also helpless. Lao Bai couldn't help but secretly give Lao Gao a thumbs up. Although this old Gao is a skilled worker, there are two tricks in deceiving people at the table. Yesterday's battle was a classic, and it seems that I need to create a plot for him to persuade him to return. Maybe in the future, this will be a legend. After greeting everyone, they never mentioned the situation at the banquet last night. Anyway, the Mi family had no intention of going back on their word. In just 2 or 3 days, they will return to the Mi family estate. Let's talk about everything when we go back. Unexpectedly, during the migration, the young people of the Mi family, who were lifeless, showed great enthusiasm and swung the whip in their hands with a crackling sound. Even the pigs and sheep seemed to have worked hard and headed home. So, the Mi family's itinerary was particularly fast. After a day's journey, based on the conversation between Lao Gao and Mi De, according to today's itinerary, at most by mid-tomorrow, they can arrive at Mi family village. Along the way, Lao Gao and his companions also saw a few people going to the village of Zhuankong, only a few or two, still smoking from the kitchen smoke. From the conversation, they learned that these were some of the villagers who were unwilling to leave and did not want to go to the village to seek refuge with others. The number of people was indeed not many. Along the way, I saw some fields after the autumn harvest, and there were basically no people working in the fields. According to Lao Gao's opinion, carrots should be planted in the fields after the wheat harvest, and there should be no shortage of vegetables for winter before the frost sets. From what we learn from Hemida, it can be seen that carrots have indeed been passed down from the Central Plains region, but they are all considered fresh and not extensively cultivated by anyone. The busiest person in the past 2 days is undoubtedly Lao Gao. Every day, he uses a plastic basin to mix everyone's feces from the past 2 days into water, and uses a small scanning net to continuously wash out some seeds from the fecal water. From the collected seeds, there are over 10 types, including tomatoes, cantaloupes, watermelons, pitaya, chili peppers, etc. Even Chen Fei and others who are on the sidelines cannot help but marvel. When this person eats, these seeds will be excreted in their original state. If it weren't for the expertise of Lao Gao, no one would know that as a traveler, everyone is a treasure. From these excreted seeds, the situation is not very optimistic either. There are many half-pulled seeds, and it is unclear what else these seeds can grow and whether they can sprout. On the other hand, Lao Gao is confident about this. He wrapped these clean seeds in napkins and put them in sealed bags. Seeing his cautious demeanor, Old Bai found it somewhat amusing. "What are you laughing at? These are all the means for us to settle down and survive in the future." "I understand this, what do you know? Just count the fruits you eat less, what kind of thing you pull out, it smells so bad." This was Chen Fei taking over. "Am I happy without meat?" Others couldn't help but burst into laughter upon hearing this, which surprised the Mi family even more. These strange people have brought them too much incredible things in the past few days. I don't know what's going on. I heard that they will also live in the Mi family village in the future, so they will have a lot of fun. Sure enough, Mi Da's speculation was still very reliable. The next day, less than noon, he saw a village standing on a high ground by the river from afar, and there were actually a few wisps of cooking smoke inside the village. Those are the tribe members who refused to leave, totaling 18 people. Upon hearing Mi Da's words, Lao Gao realized that not all Mi family members had followed the decisions of Mi Shan and others, and there were still some people who were reluctant to leave their fields and stayed here. Chapter 9. First Meeting. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the other side of the village, the noisy sound of pigs and sheep returning home had already been heard. A few people were peeking over and waiting to see clearly that their own family had returned. Suddenly, they shouted a few times and all the people who stayed in the village welcomed them out. The noise of pigs, cows, and sheep, mixed with human voices, seemed like a festive atmosphere. Even two watchdog dogs ran out of nowhere and ran back and forth in the crowd, wagging their tails with extra joy. Mijiazwang is a village located on a small highland on the east bank of the Yellow River. There is a flat land near the river, and Mijiazwang has opened a water channel here to divert water for irrigation. In terms of scale, it has approximately 1,000 acres of arable land. After walking around the village, Lao Gao also had a rough idea. The location of this village is roughly near the alkali cabinet town of the coal city in later generations. This place, so to speak, was also an agricultural area in later generations, but the conditions here cannot be considered the most superior. The area where the later coal city is located is a good place for agriculture, and there are open-air mineral resources in close proximity. It seems necessary to walk around and see the regional differences between 2,000 years ago and 2,000 years later, so it is easy to plan for the future. The plan was settled, and Lao Gao returned to the Mizhan family. As a wealthy family in the village, Mizhan naturally had wealthy houses. Although they were only adobe houses, they were managed quite well depending on the situation. This is a courtyard house behind the Mizhan family's house. The courtyard is not large and faces south. It is said that Mizhan originally planned to give the wedding house to Lao Wu. Since Lao Wu has not yet gotten married, he has taken advantage of Lao Gao and others and directly moved into their new house. The house is an adobe house, and the roof is finely coated with grass and mud very evenly. The doors and windows are very small, probably to keep warm. Grass curtains hang on the small windows, making the inside of the house look very dim. Only by opening the doors and windows can it appear brighter. The three main rooms are identical. There is no furniture, not even a bed. It seems that the fifth man is still early to get married, but Lao Gao thinks of the teenage boy who drove sheep. Mizhan sent Mida to borrow some bed furniture from other families, and then asked the muddy tribe members to build stoves for everyone, but was temporarily stopped by Lao Gao. According to Lao Gao's opinion, winter is coming soon. Without building a heated kong, such a house would be too cold to survive the winter. It is unclear whether there is still no heated kong or whether it has not spread to this area. Lao Gao plans to rest for 2 days, plan ahead, and then build a heated kong himself, even solving the problem of the stove. There is also charcoal for winter, so we need to prepare more. It's not enough to rely on burning firewood like the rice family. But the top priority is not to do these things. The most important thing at present is to unify people's hearts. The two cars suddenly arrived in a familiar and unfamiliar environment from a few days ago. For the elderly and white adults, it seems that they will soon be at ease, but for a few students, it seems that they have not yet emerged from an indescribable state. Watching the three students who have been silently following everyone's actions for the past 2 days, just as they have a place to settle, Gao gathered everyone together to prepare for a meeting, so that everyone can have some room for reconciliation. Uncle Gao, can't we really go back? Unexpectedly, before Lao Gao could speak, the seemingly quiet little girl spoke first. This is a girl from the Lao Bai family. Lao Gao remembers her name is Bai Shan. Shan, Xiao Tian, and Wu Jun, it's very likely that they won't be able to go back. Lao Gao only recently learned that this young classmate during the day was named Wu Jun, who grew up in a single-parent family. Later, he lost his single parent and had to live with his uncle's family. This child looks quite introverted, but in fact, he is quite active. Otherwise, he wouldn't have played with the daytime when his temperament was out of control. This is the Han Dynasty, the Western Han Dynasty. You have all studied history and are currently in the period of Wang Mang, which is the end of the Western Han Dynasty. Soon, the founder of the Eastern Han Dynasty, Liu Xiu, will rebel against Wang Mang. The environment we are in has not changed much. Everyone can see it, except for almost no artificial traces. The natural environment also has significant differences compared to later generations. The main issue is still the surrounding vegetation. I don't know if everyone has noticed it, but the river surface seems to have widened significantly compared to later generations. Everyone nodded secretly, and in fact, everyone had noticed what Lao Gao had said in the past few days. In addition to changes in the natural environment, it is mainly the conditions we are in and the people we come into contact with. If I'm not mistaken, these villagers of Mijiazwang are likely to go through countless hardships to reach the Yulin area in later generations and settle down there. Of course, they may also disappear on the way to migration if we don't come here. I have been thinking a lot these past few days and have had some discussions with Old Bai and Chen Fei. Today, it's rare for everyone to have time to be alone. I will share our preliminary plan with you and let you know. Everyone is also free to speak up and see if there is anything else to add. Firstly, there is a preliminary plan. Our initial intention was to follow the trend towards Yulin. However, after discussing with Old Bai Chen Fei, we believe that our strengths mainly come from later generations. On the one hand, we know some historical events, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage. On the other hand, it is the resources and knowledge we have at our disposal. Especially knowledge, it is the capital for us to settle down and make a living. If we go to the capital of the Han Dynasty at this time to find Wang Mang and say that we come from later generations, how about you? It is likely that you will be regarded as a madman, even if we have some items from later generations as proof, it is difficult for people to believe. But if we only settle in the big cities of Han, it is actually not very free. People in this era value respect and inferiority very much, especially since we have no identity. It is easy to expose some of the equality concepts in later generations, which may bring us big trouble. So, the result of our discussion is that going elsewhere is not the best option, and it's better to stay in this place. Firstly, we have a good understanding of the resources in this area, especially Chen Fei. Secondly, this place is currently in a state of no one to manage, which will be convenient for us to do next. As for what to do in the future, I also want to give everyone a bottom line. This place is within Hatao. If nothing unexpected happens, after the war and chaos break out, the Central Plains dynasty will no longer be concerned about it. This place will become the territory of the Xiongnu and nomadic tribes. Chapter 10. Starting Arrangements. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. De co lois ara trong quatrin lay text.